Welcome to MSP Voice, the weekly show for MSPs by MSPs. Brought to you by Cloudberry, the #1 cross-platform cloud backup. Learn more at cloudberrylab.com. This is MSP Voice. Hello and welcome. This is MSP Voice episode number 35. So today I'm joined by Scott Sanders, who runs Affordable Technology Solutions out of South Carolina and also manages a great group, great community called the IT Business Owners Group, a very popular Facebook group as well as website where you can get some great information and discounts from vendors. So definitely check out the interview and Scott's story on how that all got started. Some housekeeping here real quick. MSPvoice.com is your source for all things MSP Voice. So we've got all the podcasts on there, and I'm going to be announcing some webinars probably later this week. So be sure to check that out and see if you're interested and get registered for those webinars. So with that being said, let's get to just a couple of Reddit articles this week. I didn't have a ton of time to do research. I've been on a cruise for the last week. So just a couple of quick articles. This first one, you've probably seen it if you have been in the MSP subreddit. It's an urgent notice that there's an expired certificate for Connectwise Automate Labtech that needs to be patched by March 9th, or else your server and agents will stop working. So this sounds critical. Hopefully if you're using Connectwise Automate / Labtech, hopefully you've already seen this, but if not, just wanted to put this out there. So definitely check out the show notes in terms of the link to this. It's got all the information, how to fix it, the patches to apply, and all those other types of things. I'm not going to go through the comments on this, but definitely check this out if you are an Automate customer. Next up, this one I found a little bit interesting. It's how do you remove Edge from the taskbar? This poster, he says this is annoying. It seems like the only way to programmatically remove Edge from the taskbar is to set a custom taskbar, which means the user can't edit it anymore. All we want to do is remove Edge, but allow users to edit the rest of their taskbar. Any suggestions? So the reason I included this is, the one with the most upvotes here is a PowerShell script. So he puts in the PowerShell script I run to delete various app shortcuts. It seems to work for us. And he posted the code to the PowerShell script to be able to remove it. The original poster said thank you. And then some of the other comments is kind of is there a way to take the script and have it add things to the taskbar? Somebody says no, you can't do that. Some use custom XML files. But just kind of an interesting thing. If you don't want Edge in the taskbar and you have to remove it from maybe hundreds or even thousands of desktops, then this is the way to do it. And it's kind of funny. One person says, all you got to do is right-click, unpin from taskbar, works for us every time. And then he says, one machine done, 3,486 endpoints to go, which then leads to 99 bottles of beer on the wall analogy, but you get the point. So if you want to remove Edge programmatically from a bunch of desktops, here's a great resource in order to do that. And then finally, we have first-line help desk strategy. This person, he's read a lot about ITIL and SDI, but in practice, what are people's strategies when it comes to first-line help desk? When we were smaller, answering the phone, identifying the customer, then ticket troubleshoot, remote access, and resolution while on the call was manageable. As we've grown in customer and numbers, it seems we have a few options. The first option, flip our first line to do triage, basic troubleshooting, fault logging, minimize call times, calling back, and resolving. This can relate to SLAs. Option 2, agent groups queues, which may annoy customers. And number 3, get more staff to cope with peaks. He says, I'm sure others are the same, but mornings and early afternoons are busy. It seems mad to hire more techs to cover those periods. I'm leaning towards option number 1. But for some customers, this would change to say your ticket is 2, 3, 4, whatever, and someone will call you back. Now, one of the interesting things I thought on this one, the one that has the most upvote so far, is weekly therapy for your help desk would go a long way, and that leads to another discussion. But it's kind of one of those things where when you work the help desk or any kind of service industry like this, people say the meanest and cruelest things sometimes. They get really mad and they take their frustrations out on whoever it is that answers the phone. There's some other folks talk about different groups and those types of things. But therapy, hey, it may be an option. To at least help your help desk staff to cope with these users. Someone else says, what's your volume like? What's your staffing like? He says he's 6 first line with 4 more senior techs. Call volumes can be up to 80 per day, mix of phone and email tickets. So the current call answering is not the main issue per se. It's the balance of the first call resolution against a fault logging strategy, or a hybrid 2 or 3 call logs, the remaining work through tickets. So, you know, other people said 1,600 tickets a month. You know, that's quite a bit. Maybe you do need to hire more people. Others say put 3 on triage during peak volume times, but allow a little more time if they can resolve in under 20 minutes. It depends on what your processes and systems you have. You know, one person here says one thing you might want to consider sooner or later: dedicate someone senior to triage incoming tickets, either periodically or constantly, and move them to first or second line accordingly. So, you know, there's a lot of talk here about, you know, kind of do a quick triage to see if you can resolve it, and if you can't, then move it up to the next level, but do it relatively quickly, so that way you can kind of get to the next one. Because if there's that many stuff, if there's that much incoming, you know, you want to handle them all as fast as you can, but you know, you can't have 6 techs spending an hour with each customer before they get to the next one. So some good advice there. There's actually quite a few comments on this one, so definitely read through it. If you got some suggestions or comments, then definitely let them know. So with that, I am now going to turn it over to our interview. Again, this is Scott Sanders with Affordable Technology Solutions in South Carolina, and the popular group, the IT Business Owners Group, or ITBOG. So check out the interview. Scott's got some great stories, and we'll see you next week. Hello and welcome. Today I am joined by Scott Sanders out of the South Carolina area, if I'm not mistaken. Columbia?
That's it, Columbia, dead in the center of the state.
All right, so Scott, why don't you tell us about yourself and a little bit about your business?
Well, thanks, Doug, for having me on. I actually am in the IT arena in 2 different areas. So I own a break fix and an MSP hybrid shop.
Okay.
That I've been doing I've actually owned it now going on 15 years.
Wow.
We started out as a residential break fix local service company, and a lot of those break fix clients, you know, in the beginning were like, God, you know more than the guy we had at work. So I started picking up some commercial clients from that.
Okay.
That worked out well, and started dipping my toes into the enterprise commercial side of the industry, and really liked it. So built up quite a little business here in the Columbia and surrounding areas. And of course, with remote, with the introduction of that, it kind of opens up a broader audience, not just local to my, where can I drive to? I now have remote clients in other states, which is kind of cool.
Great. Did you, you know, you talked about getting into business doing break fix. Did you have a career in IT or, you know, technical before that?
Well, I went to work for my father in his business, and his business, we won't really get into what it was. That's a whole nother topic. It was all paper driven. And when I got out of college, I went to work for him and said, Dad, there's got to be an easier way. And that was really, you know, I'd always kind of tinkered. I've always had a mindset for technology, but I never got into computers and programming, of course. But we're talking a long time ago back then. We're still talking. I remember the first computers, you know, having the AOL dial-up.
Yep.
So, you know, it's very, I don't know, but I can't remember. I wasn't ever a gamer, so I didn't get into like the Commodores and Tandies and all that. That was actually just a little bit right before my era. I actually started working on, I remember the first computers that I deployed, we deployed at my father's office were like, I think they were Windows 2000 professional. Learned how to network them, how to set up a little work group, how to server. Quickly realized how to, if there was a problem, just to get all the data out, where the data was. And something, if it whooped me, then I just wipe the machine and start all over again. Kind of made it like a methodical practice.
Okay.
And so I started applying that, and in the beginning, you know, I didn't know a whole lot about it. I was just figuring it all out as I went along. And You know, that was a lot of the way that I fixed things in the very beginning, until I started figuring out, I'm seeing this over and over. There's got to be an easier fix than just wiping and reloading every time I see a problem. So we'll call that my pizza tech days.
Okay.
You know, so online you'll hear that term a lot. I think they're called trunk slammers, pizza techs.
Yep.
Truth of the matter is, I think all good technicians started out that way anyways. So I know I personally did. Those are my grassroots, but over time you evolve. You realize that one way you used to do it before, that may have been good, but back then, but things change, technology changes, standard practices need to change to keep up with that too. So lately I have been trying to migrate my business into a full-blown managed service provider.
Okay. So
we're trying to get away from that reactive, hey, help, you know, something's broken. I'm tired of being the firefighter after 50 years. So, that's a tough struggle. It's a big struggle for me personally. I've successfully managed to convert about half of my clients over and see the true value in someone actively monitoring your computer systems and networks for potential problems and heading them off ahead of time. It just makes total sense to me to take all the things I have seen and worked on over the past 15 years that have caused problems and just figure out a solution and attack those ahead of time before they become a problem.
Yeah, no, I noticed you still have kind of a little bit of residential on your website as well. I would imagine you consider that more break fix because it's residential versus managed. Is that something that you still offer excitedly, or is?
Well, here's the thing. Being in this for so long, I have so many clients that call me still on the residential side, and I'm very loyal to those who've been loyal to me over the years.
Yeah. Okay.
So I kind of pick and choose, but I'm not accepting any new clients at this point unless they, I'm only selling my managed plan, but clients who've been with me 10 years, I'm not going to let them go. I'll still support them. If they don't want to do the managed services, then, we just went up on our rates. So that kind of offsets that a little bit.
Okay, great. And, is it easy to transition them? I mean, you said, you kind of, no?
It's not. I've read books, I've done everything. And I think everybody looks in our industry that's making that transition from break fix to managed services. I think that they're looking for the magical answer. What's that what's the 2-line sentence I need to tell every client that's going to say, oh yeah, where can I sign up? I just don't feel like that's, I don't feel like that's there. It doesn't exist because every client is different. Every client's needs are different. Their mentality is different. Their budgets are different. And they don't see value like you or I see value in the end.
Yeah. So now, in terms of the customers you have, at least under the managed services side, do you specialize in any particular verticals, or is it because you've been in business for so long, and do you have a lot of verticals, or how does that work?
Just about every kind of industry. I support HIPAA clients. I also have plumbing services that I support. I mean, my thing, I've never really, in 15 years, I've never really advertised. It's always word of mouth. Yeah. So I'm not the guy to put a Yellow Page ad out and say, I've always been referred. So 100% of my work comes off of referrals from previous clients. And I'll always ask for that. I'll say, hey, if you think I did a great job for you, my Google review has just always been, let everybody know what a good job I did for you. So I've just always, I think referrals are word of mouth referrals are the #1 source for good clients. Yeah,
I don't think anyone would disagree with that. So, I know for some people getting started, it's kind of, you've got to get over that hump. You've got to get some clients before they can start referring you. So
Absolutely.
And, and if you're trying to really aggressively grow the business, then, maybe you do advertise just because, you need some leads coming in for your salespeople to follow up on and those types of things. So definitely, lot of interesting differing opinions on advertising out there in the MSP space. So.
There is, and that's funny because the advertisement. I'm that way in one of my businesses, and then the other business, I don't think we've really touched on that yet. I'm all about advertising in there, but that's kind of different. But the whole crux, before we jump into the other topic, the whole crux of it for me is, the managed services for so long. Here's where the problem lies. I was so busy 15 years ago running my business, trying to get my business up and running, that I was just focused on one thing, Doug. I was focused on getting the clients, making them happy at all cost.
Yeah.
I wasn't focused from the dollars and cents point, so to speak. I did start with a pretty high rate. I've seen a lot lower. But I started with a fair rate, but it was still on the high side 15 years ago. And one of the biggest things that I have seen in the transition is I always taught people to just call me when they needed me. I didn't realize the value of the proactive side of things. So in 15 years, those break-fix clients, that's what they've done. They've only called me when they needed me. But the problem now is when they call me, they really need me, and it's always a crisis. And 15 years later, it's just wearing me thin. So what I found with those, I've been implementing managed services now for a year, and it's really just monitoring at this point. I've got an RMM that I use, Ninja RMM. And it works well for my needs. It sends me alerts. I'm able to, check on the status of all of my endpoints across all organizations. It's really a good thing for me. But there's still a few things that I'd like to add to. I think they call it your stack. So, I'd like to add a few things, and those, we'll get into that later, and that's going to be tiered pricing. So I'm kind of taking baby steps with the MSP transition.
Okay.
So I think that's in the end, it's gonna allow me to have better clients. We won't have to respond to so many emergencies. We'll try to hit them before they happen. But it's not an easy transition.
No, I don't imagine, especially after, since you've been doing it for so long. You mentioned, some kind of another area of interest or that you're working on. And this is how we got connected is your IT Business Owners Group, or ITBOG.
So ITBOG. So years ago, actually, it's been years now. Years ago, I was on LinkedIn, and I still have a LinkedIn profile. I still get emails all the time. I just never go into LinkedIn anymore.
I don't either.
I think it's for people who need a job, or to promote their skill set. But I started IT Business Owners Group on LinkedIn, and it was really just a group. It was one of those things I was just playing around with. Just one of those things you just get into and just start doing. And it really kind of took off overnight. But it was really a support group, but there was never, like I was out here selling all this stuff, like these products, antiviruses and backup solutions for all these vendors. But I never had a proper channel before I invented or came up or created ITBOG. I never had a proper channel to go in and mix, like, if I'm selling a product for a vendor and I didn't want to have to call the vendor support line to ask questions.
Yeah.
So I felt like there was a need for such a place for vendors and the technicians and sales and companies that sell their product to co-mingle together. And that way, if I have an issue with a product I'm selling, I could go and discuss it openly, and other people in my field may say, hey, we're having the same problem. Well, then the vendor can take action and say, yeah, thanks for the heads up. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I started it. But it started as a LinkedIn group. Like I said, that group still exists, but it's completely dead now because I think it has close to 2,000 members. And when I can find time to put on another hat, maybe I'll go back in and start it up again. But but one of the problems, the key issues in LinkedIn with ITBOG in the beginning was I would ask a question, and we live in what I call a microwave society today. So everybody wants it right now. Your clients certainly want it right now. So if you're sitting, I surrounded myself with a lot of technical people, and everybody was 100% vetted business owner. So I don't want the techs that work for you. I want you, if you're the business owner, or the IT decision maker. So basically we got together, we created this group, it took off great, but what I found was an issue was that I would ask a question and then it would take maybe a day, like a full 24 hours to get a response back.
Yeah.
And I didn't like that. So I didn't even actually have a Facebook account at the time, but my wife, she had a Facebook account. So some of the people went over and helped me create, because I had some volunteer admins at the time.
Okay.
So we created a Facebook group, and it kind of took off from there. We just told everybody in the group, hey, we're moving over, and it was definitely slower growth on the Facebook side. It took off like overnight on LinkedIn, but I didn't have what I call that rapid fire approach. My type of question, I want to be able to get an answer almost instantaneously.
Yeah.
So I've always had that mindset in driving the group. So we've had the group, it's social media. The group has had ups and downs, but one of the things that I like about it, it really is, the group has transitioned more from break fix. Now a lot of people are kind of in my same position. We're trying to get out of that break fix model and move over to more of a managed solution, which just makes more sense. So we all get to go to the group and we can ask questions of whether it's a billing question, how do I build this client? Or, hey guys, what do you think about Cloudberry backup service? Which I definitely am all for. So, it's just a great resource. We have a member map. What we're trying to do with that, though, is we're trying to actually form an association. We're going to have, it's not just going to be a Facebook group. It may have started on social media. That may be our grassroots. That's where we got our foothold. But, at the same time, we're going to be doing big things with that. So the website, www.itbog.org, itbog.org.
Okay.
You go sign up. There's a link to our Facebook group there. So you can sign up, get an account. You can join the Facebook group. But you have to be the business owner to be in the Facebook group. That's what gives the group value add. You have to stay focused.
Or a vendor.
Yep, Cloudberry.
Let vendors in.
I let vendors in.
I wish it was easier on Facebook to identify as a vendor, because that you don't, if someone comments, you don't necessarily know who they are unless you click on their profile, and they may say they work for a vendor or they may not, so you don't necessarily know. So I always put that disclaimer in there if I'm commenting on something in a Facebook group. By the way, I work for I work for Cloudberry, I work for the vendor, just to make sure people understand that's where I'm coming from.
Absolutely. And, that's a great point, because we're actually looking at a site redo. And I want to, because one of the problems is everybody's just staying in Facebook. nobody's really driving traffic to the website and membership site. And what we want to do is we want to add value there. So, I have a lot of other members that will say, the only thing that stinks is this group is on Facebook because I hate going to Facebook. So I've been thinking with the member redo about maybe adding like a forum or something in there that would kind of mimic or mirror the topics being discussed in the Facebook group. So if someone does want to be a member, they don't necessarily have to be in the Facebook group. We'll just make the Facebook group a value add.
Okay, cool. So, kind of going back, you've got a resource out there for folks, and you've been in this for a while, and like I said, you're transitioning over to MSP as much as you can. But for someone who's just coming into the group or just getting started and saying, hey, I'm brand new to this MSP, I'm going to go out on my own, what kind of advice do you have for them?
Documentation, document everything. I think documentation, one of the things that I'm learning coming from break fix, in a break fix setting, you're just there to fix a problem. You're like the plumber. Oh, well, the pipe is leaking here. You just fix the pipe and you're done. So documentation really hasn't been a big part of my career in the past, but moving over to transitioning into MSP, I document everything because it puts you in a more intimate role with your client. And I explain that to my clients that I'm converting over. Hey, I'm going to take a more intimate approach to your technology. I'm not just going to call you if I need to do something. I'm just going to do it. So they need to, clients need to understand that up front in a managed role. We basically, and I think the easiest way to explain it is we become your outsourced IT department.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, definitely.
That would be my biggest thing is documentation and make sure that everything is automate as much as possible because it's a ton of work. So automation is key.
Definitely. So, you've been doing this for 15 years. What's the best part about it? What do you enjoy the most?
I really, truly enjoy a challenge. I'm not necessarily a big reader, but I do like to figure things out in my head. So like I like to logistically lay things out visually in my head and then follow through with that and make things happen. Like a client will call me and say, hey, I need this done. We're working on this. And I like to strategically lay it out and just make it happen either remotely or on site. But a lot of stuff, with the automation tools, it's very easy to do remotely.
Okay. What's the worst part?
Friday night at 9 o'clock when I'm trying to watch TV and I have a managed client with an issue that's down. That's the worst part.
Yeah. Yes, that work-life balance, right?
That is.
So, we talked about the community that you're building, the IT Business Owners Group. What other communities do you involve yourself in as part of your journey?
That's really about it. Okay. It's funny, my wife used to fuss at me all the time about being on Facebook, and I tell people that when I'm on Facebook, I'm engaging my group. I'm trying to make the group what it is. I'm trying to come up with questions, posts that will inspire people to start talking about things. It's all about community engagement to me.
Yeah.
So, if it's not policing the group, monitoring the group, pumping the group up, all kind of things. But I use Facebook differently than most people. So I don't necessarily have any other groups that I go to. If it's IT related, I focus 100% of my efforts in my own group.
Okay. Yeah. So because, I came at Facebook a little bit differently. I use it much more for personal and now it's being used more for work. So it's,
Sure.
and I think that's why probably some people, from a Facebook perspective are kind of like, Facebook's my personal, LinkedIn's my professional.
Right.
So thinking about technologies and whether it's consumer or, related to what you do in your business on a day-to-day basis, what technologies are you most excited about? What like, on the horizon or something you're working on today?
Oh, well, it takes a lot to fascinate me. I've seen just about anything and everything. But the latest thing that I've really gotten into that I like, and nobody's paying me to do it right now, but I really see it as something really cool, and it's totally off topic, but the virtual reality. I got one of those Oculus Go's. My best friend, he has MS, and he lives about an hour away from me, but we grew up together.
Okay.
And he can't get out physically and do the things that I can do, but we're the same age.
Yeah.
But the other night, he has one and I have one. We attended a basketball game in Atlanta, Georgia, which is, the next state over from us, 5-hour drive. And we sat next to each other on the front row and watched the basketball game each other. I just thought that was the coolest thing. He was at his house, I was at mine, and we really felt like we were there. So that's
awesome. Yeah, that's really cool when you can share an experience like that, using, when the technology allows you to do that, things you wouldn't normally be able to do. So that's great.
And I could totally, now there's a lot of debate about the age a child should use it, because I have a 10-year-old and he still hasn't been able to use it, but I'm just that concerned parent, something about the eyes development and all that kind of stuff with it. But I could totally see it being used in like a homeschooling environment where you can actually stay home and just put those goggles on and you could be in a classroom setting.
Yep. Or like you say, people who just can't get out, right? Who for whatever reason, and then can just use that as an experience and be able to experience new things, even though, physically they may not be able to. I think that's great implementation of the technology. And I'm sure we'll get it into a business sense somehow, right? Too. So
absolutely, it can always be used for learning. So you could virtually teleport yourself to a data center, and I'm sure there would be interactive things you could do, like to take tests. So maybe that's the way we'll get our new certs. Go in, which Ethernet plug do you unplug? It's right there in front of you. That would be
the red one.
Yep. No, never the red one. I thought it was the blue one.
Oh, so that's what you're excited about. What technologies are you worried about? What keeps you up at night?
What keeps me up at night? Probably, cybersecurity and ransomware attacks. And, I don't really too much worry because my clients are on backups. But I don't too much worry about a whole lot because as long as I can get my hands on a backup, I can pretty much build it. So, it doesn't really matter. The hardware is immaterial. It's the data that's important.
Yeah. Okay. No, great answer for that. And with that, we are now to our rapid fire round.
Okay.
So we've got 6 questions. Easy, just whatever first comes to mind. There's no wrong answer on most of them. So we'll just go through this quick. And are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. First up, Apple or Android?
Apple.
All right. Mac, Linux, or Windows?
Windows.
Okay. Amazon, Azure, or something else?
Amazon.
Okay. Local backups, cloud, or both?
Both.
Great. Should you always virtualize, yes or no?
Depends.
Okay. I should add depends on that as an option. And then finally, which is worse, printer support or vendor cold calls?
Equal.
Equal, okay. I'm sure you've had your fair share of printer support, so.
Absolutely.
Great, Scott. It's been fun. Any last words of advice you have, before we leave, anything you want to share with the community or our listeners?
No, I appreciate you having me on. And if anybody, if you own a computer repair business or an MSP and you'd like to join our community, it's www.itbog.org, or you can send us an email to support@itbog.org. So
great. Yeah, I will.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll include the links in the show notes, so that way people know where to find you. Like I said, I think the Facebook group was great. It's very active. I'm more of a lurker than a participant because I don't want to jump in if I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to say anything. So, but I do appreciate what you've done there with that. All right. Well, thanks again, and hopefully I'll get to meet you in person one of these days.
Sounds like a plan. Doug,
all right. Thanks a lot. All right. Thank you, Scott.
have a good day.
You too.